It is absolutely perfect and works every time. Unfortunately, the left cannot successfully deploy this trick because I don't even know how to articulate it, but that's just kind of how politics are in this country. But let me tell you about this genius right-wing conservative trick that works every single time. So, what you do is you accuse your opponents of doing something bad. They might be doing it a little bit or not at all. It doesn't really matter. You can actually make it up and it'll work. One of the reasons it'll work is because in right-wing media, accuracy is irrelevant, right? If you're getting misinformation from left-wing media, more times than not, it's just ignorance. But right-wing media, it's the brand, right? It's like, say whatever, no matter how ridiculous it is, to, help in that mission of power. It's all about power, right? The right-wing media operating as the sort of the lieutenants of the Republican Party, essentially, right? You go and you promote these billionaires and elites, and then you get to ride in private jets. You get to go to Mar-a-Lago, which kind of sounds like the stuff they say about George Soros, but this is actually happening. But anyway, so that's the first step. Accuse the left of something. It doesn't matter whether it's true. Most times, it's not true, right? So when Biden was president, right, you can make a false claim and say that Joe Biden is using the FBI to target his political opponents. He is using the CIA. They've got all of the entire Republican Party's phones bugged, right? A lot of top Republicans have these undercover cars in front of their houses, and it's Biden CIA agents that are monitoring everything they do and say. This is fascist, and we can say fascist. The left can't say it, but we can say it because we're the right, and it's in the name, right? Everything we say is right, right? So they can say that, right? And that can go across right-wing media. And this could be completely pulled out of thin air. No evidence, and you don't even try to present any evidence. You just say it, right? You just say this is what Biden is doing. This is bad. This is fascist. Blah blah blah. Biden is bad. Okay. Then when Trump gets elected, this is a slam dunk on this trick that's really, really effective. When Donald Trump becomes president, he now has a blank check to do anything that he wants that's even remotely similar to what you accuse the left of doing, right? So let's just say Donald Trump wanted to use the IRS to monitor all the bank accounts of all the Democrats, right? And all he has to say is because of Antifa, and there's evidence that Antifa is getting directly funded through these Democrats, or they're involved somehow. Antifa is a terrorist group, so the job of the government is to protect the people. The job of our law enforcement is to protect the people, right? And if you have a terrorist movement in this country, right, Antifa, and they're engaged with the Democrats, then necessarily it's law enforcement's job to sort of find out who these people are, these Democrats, and lock them up, because this is criminal activity. You're engaged with terrorists, right? So that I just made up, right? And that's what you do, and it's very effective. I just make up some kind of a law and order justification. You know, there's nothing strange here. This is what law enforcement does. There's the terrorism, and there's links to the Democrats. I don't provide any evidence, don't need to. Links to the Democrats, so we got to find out. And then the thing is, why would you have a problem with us trying to root out terrorism? I mean, are you a terrorist sympathizer? Like, who would have a problem with us trying to stop terrorists from engaging with the Democratic Party against the country, right? So that's any kind of justification. You make anything up that has any kind of sound of like law and order, and the right wing will be like, makes sense, right? And then if anyone on the left points out how this is wrong and this is illegal, that Trump is actually using the IRS to surveil Democrats, anyone that on the left that makes that argument, you're not going to go anywhere. That your argument is going to fall flat because of this trick. Remember what we started with, right? We accuse the Democrats of doing this, right? Joe Biden was bugging all the phones of the Jews. No evidence of it, right? But we just keep saying it and saying it and saying it, because it becomes something. It's almost as, you know, the sun comes up in the morning. It becomes a objective fact that Biden was supposedly doing this. And here is the beauty of it. So now, not only do you get a blank check to do what you claimed the Democrats were doing, whether they were doing it or not, but you can do it to any extreme level, right? You can whatever it is that you accuse Democrats of, the Republicans can do 10 times worse. And they can hand wave away any sort of accusations of this is wrong by simply saying, I don't remember you complaining when Joe Biden was doing this. Joe Biden was surveilling all the Republicans. He had our phones bugged and this and that and that. That's not constitutional. You didn't say anything about that. Why are you worrying about it now? Now, obviously, whether Biden was doing this or not is irrelevant to the conversation about Trump doing it now and it being wrong. But the way our politics in this country, this
estimated time in traffic,
this argument
9
can
minutes.
actually work. This argument, in most cases, will actually work, right? Among the intended audience, of course, right? Let's talk about who the intended audience is. Obviously, the far right, yeah, I mean, yeah, anything that supports their side, yeah, great. Yeah, exactly. Biden did it too, right? The other part of the intended audience are just regular, normal conservatives, right? How do they fit into this? How are they part of this messaging campaign? If you're a regular conservative, you're not super politically involved, you're focused on your family and your life and your life goals, whatever it is, you got a lot of stuff going on. You don't have a lot of time to be online watching all these online videos, right? So you only hear little bits and pieces, right? And you're hearing people on the left complaining about Trump is doing this thing, which sounds kind of crazy, right? And that makes you feel uncomfortable, like, oh, I actually voted for Trump and look what he's doing. He's doing a bad thing, right? But this is that interesting conundrum where you have a fork in the road. You can either continue being uncomfortable, right, with this potential reality that you voted for someone that's doing this very, very unconstitutional thing, or you can believe in just about any alternative that allows you to escape that reality. So that means, you know, if I'm a right-wing influencer, the bar is very, very low for my justification rhetoric, right? Because part of the people I'm talking to, they want to believe anything else other than that they voted for a guy who's doing this unconstitutional. They don't want to believe that, right? So you give them anything. It's kind of like a crackhead, right? That's just jonesing for some crack. And they'll, you know, I'll do anything, man. I'll suck your lighter. Your cheap gas station lighter. Anyway, so to that normal conservative, you get on Fox News or whatever and you say, all these liberals are talking about Trump being or whatever, but under Joe Biden was doing the same thing, and Joe Biden was doing this and that and that. No evidence presented, right? You don't have to present any evidence, right? I'm not saying literally whatever they say, there's never any evidence, but I'm saying it's not required. No one cares. The people that they're talking to do not care. What they're looking for is something like a security blanket, right? What I'm being told makes me feel uncomfortable, that I might have voted for someone who's doing something unconstitutional, right? Please save me from this uncomfortable truth. So you get on Fox News and you say, Joe Biden did the same thing, and when Joe Biden did it, and they had nothing to say, and now they want to go and say this and that, talking about everything else other than what Trump is doing, right? So in a conversation about what Trump is doing, the entire conversation ends up being Joe Biden did it, and the Democrats did this, and out of control, and all Trump is trying to do is law and order, and he's trying to protect the people from terrorism, and I don't know why they want to stop him from protecting terrorism. And it's like, do they like terrorism? I mean, I'm an American, and I want to feel safe. I think everybody here wants to feel safe, and what Trump is doing was going to make us safe because he's going after terrorists, and for some reason the left has a problem with him going after terrorism, right? And to the normie conservative, they're like, seems legit, right? So when they get confronted by their liberal friend, right, they have a talking point. They can say, hey, boy, Joe Biden did the same thing. And because they're really, really engaged in their lives, they're not really politically involved, they're not going to spend the time to look into it or think much about it. They don't want to think of it. They don't want to know. Don't want to know. The potential that they voted for this is an uncomfortable reality. So not only are they super busy with their lives like most Americans are, they're not interested in finding out that they might have supported a man who might be doing some crazy things, right? So again, the fork in the road. Accept whatever nonsense you hear from right-wing media or the right-wing influencers, right? Or accept the uncomfortable reality that you are an accomplice to some very destructive forces in America. And this strategy has been extremely effective for a very long time now. And I think the success rate of his strategy is very, very, very high for the reasons that I described, right? Anything that you want to do, right, when the Democrats are in power, just accuse them of doing it to any level. Once again, they could be doing it on a small level, right? Once you put that out there, that the Democrats are doing something that's bad, something that you want to do, you secretly want to do the same thing, right? But you put it out there that they're doing it right now. Then whenever Republicans get in power, blank check. You can do whatever the hell you want, and anyone that questions it, all you got to say is, but the Democrats did the same thing, and you didn't say anything. Why are you saying something now? You completely sidestep and dodge the conversation about what the Republicans are doing, right? No matter what it is. Mass surveillance, deploying the military in the streets, whatever it is. Do whatever the hell you want to do, as long as you can frame it as both sides, right? That's what this both sides thing is actually very, very dangerous. That's why me, as a person who's actually objective, whenever I point out that there are problems on both sides, I almost always try to add an extra layer of information in saying that both sides might conduct themselves in a similar way, but there's levels. And one side is particularly bad and much, much worse than the other, right? I have serious problems with both sides, right? I would like a revolution from whatever both sides are doing, right? But there is no confusion whatsoever about which side is more dangerous and toxic. I make that very, very clear. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people who, in my opinion, for financial reasons, don't make that distinction, right? There's this enlightened centrist thing where you pretend to be objective, but then you spend most of your time going after the left. Everything, the left has gone too far, left has gone too far. And, you have rhetoric where you're focused on a group that's gone too far. But yet at the same time, right-wingers could be going, the most extreme ever, right? Right-winger pass a bill that allows, I'm making this up, politicians to be naked in Congress, right? That's just a thing. Like if it's a free country, you should be able to do whatever you want to do, right? I mean, that's kind of extreme, like you're going to literally be naked in Congress. But the same people who were talking about, the left is gone too far, silence. If it becomes too, what's the word? If it looks too bad, if it's something that's really, really bad and is getting a ton of coverage, then they'll cover their asses. Most likely they'll try to do a little tweet, in the shadows type of thing. This nudity thing in the Congress is it's kind of weird. I don't know what that's all about, right? But they will do 3 and 4 videos about something that the left has gone too far about. And whatever that thing is, it doesn't have to even be that big of a deal, right? It could be the most inconsequential thing that the left is supposedly doing, and 4 to 5 videos. Oh, the left. Meanwhile, the right wing voting for nudity in Congress, and it gets a tweet eventually, only because there's been massive coverage for a week, and it's looking really, really suspicious that you're not saying anything. So you go and you put your thing there, and then if you end up on a debate or something, a panel somewhere, and someone calls you out like, "Hey man, you always talk about the left. Why didn't you say anything about this nudity thing?" And you'd be like, "No, I said something about it. I absolutely said so." And you're not lying. Like you literally tweeted a week after it, specifically for this purpose, to be able to say, "No, I both sides. I'm objective." In contrast, when the left actually did go too far, when I had a lot of problems with what they were doing with this Black Lives Matter stuff and the Antifa stuff that they're now pretending doesn't exist. Rose City Antifa, for those who don't know, because just like how the right wing, the worst of the right doesn't really know about, right? Like let's say January 6th is that's a very, very bad thing for the right wing movement, right? I can guarantee the average right winger, their knowledge of what happened on that day, very limited. Very, very limited. I could put on a bunch of details and be like, "I never heard that. Where did you hear this from? Who told you that?" You've been watching liberal media, right? I just watched the debate with Destiny, and he mentions about this crazy Charlie Kirk fan that killed those 2 girls, and the guy's like, "Oh, when did that happen?" Right? I guarantee he knows every single thing that the left has done, including many things that the left hasn't done, but he thinks they've done, right? So right wingers could make up a story. Like let's say a right winger does some violence, right? The right wing media can go and say, "No, he's actually a left winger," right? This guy who doesn't know about the Kirk fan that killed those girls, he'll hear their stories about this left winger doing violence, but it was actually a right winger, but he won't know that. He'll know in his mind, like, "Yeah, there's tons of left wingers that are doing violence," right? And one of those left wingers will be this person that was made up to him, right? But the girls, the Kirk fans that got run over, when did this happen? Who told you that? Oh, is this mainstream media? Sounds like a made up story, right? So there you have it. Accuse your political opponents of doing a bad thing, and then when you're in power, do the exact thing you accuse them of. And anybody who says anything, you just say, "Well, they did it too, man," because American politics is juvenile, right? That's I think that's not even high school, that's elementary, right? Johnny did it too. Why are you playing video games in the middle of class? Well, Johnny was playing video games too, and you didn't say anything when Johnny was doing it. Right? Look at what Joe Biden, look what Donald Trump is doing right now. He's violating the Constitution. Well, Joe Biden, he was violating the Constitution too, and you didn't do anything about that. Donald Trump is covering up the Epstein files. Well, Joe Biden covered it up as well. Joe Biden wasn't even talking about the Epstein files at all. How was he covering it up? He just ignored it. Trump is actually covering it up and blocking the release of it. But Joe Biden, he was president for 4 years, and he didn't release the Epstein files. So now, why you want to be mad at me for doing what he did, and when he did it, you didn't do anything? That is American politics in 2025. Yep. The master plan, masterclass in manipulation. And as I said before, unfortunately, these tricks,
GPS signal lost.
I guess we can go into details about this in a future video, but and some of these left-wing folks, these like progressives, don't seem to get it. Like they have this mentality: if you can't beat them, join them. So it's kind of like the right-wing media has been dominating with corruption and, you know, billionaire influence and all this kind of stuff. And yet again, that same strategy I talked about, they've used it already. They claim that the left wing, right? You can clearly see how broke a lot of these left wingers are. And obviously, Brian Charlie Cohen is not broke, and some of the top guys are not broke. But a lot of these left wingers, you look at them in contrast to the right wingers. The right wingers are getting paid, right? You know, look at Ben Shapiro. Every 10 seconds, he's doing a sponsorship, right? So it's like money, right? But people like David Pakman and Brian Tyler Cohen, they see how corrupt right-wing media is, how they basically exist to serve the Republican Party, and they see how it's been winning. And they see the money that these people are making and the access they have to power. And these guys are like, well, you know, it's working for them, and we're losing, and we need to fight back. So, you know, no more Mr. Nice Guy. We're gonna promote a bunch of dark money funded propaganda networks, just like Daily Wire. Unfortunately, however, the Democratic Party base is not the same as the Republican Party base. These are different types of people. They think differently. What works for one doesn't necessarily work for the other, right? They keep pointing out how these liberal universities are brainwashing people, and that's the problem. Maybe you believe that or not, but here's the reality. There's going to be an effect of this education, right, in terms of the way that the Democratic base voters think. You may think of it as a positive change in their thought process, or you can think of it as a negative thing, but it's going to be a thing, right? So people who think differently based on them being educated in whatever way you want to describe it, maybe those people aren't responsive to the same things that the Republican voters are, right? So I don't know if corrupt, billionaire-funded, dark money-funded media that's all like chummy with the Democratic Party, the way the right wing media has been for a while. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's I don't know if that's going to be as effective with the Democratic Party base as it is with the Republican Party base. Perhaps acknowledge that, you know, the Republican Party base and the Democratic Party bases are different. They think differently, and in terms of strategy, you can't just be, you know, you see something is working on the right and like, okay, so what are we gonna do? No, it's you gotta cater to your audience, right? So how about we figure out what is working? How about we figure out what works with the Democratic Party base and do that, rather than look at what someone is doing for a different audience and then think we can apply it to our audience. Maybe. Food for thought.